Councillors. Remind you that the meeting is being webcast. Those of us in attendance should refrain from making any defamatory statements. If you join me please in the acknowledgement of Catherine the prayer. Yass Valley Council recognises the Ngunnawal people, the traditional custodians of land and sky. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present and future emerging leaders. We extend our respect to other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who live in the Yass Valley local government area. Prayer. Let us be still and remember the presence of God. As we commence our meeting, let us together pray for guidance and help. Almighty God, we ask your blessing upon this council. Direct and prosper the deliberations to the true welfare of Australia and the people of Yass Valley. Amen. We have no apologies. Any declarations of community interest or special disclosures? Councillor Burgess.
Well, 32, 9.1 and 10.2, the minutes of the Bendigo Wind Farm and the farm.
Can you give me those numbers again, please? Councillor Burgess.
9.1 and 10.2. Joining landowner and receive financial gain.
Thank you, Councillor Burgess. Councillor Rowe.
Yes, I'd like to disclose a significant interest in the community financial assistance grants. One of those grants is one that I'd like to propose.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, similar interest in 9.1, 10.1, 10.2. My wife is the applicant on behalf of Wilkins Kangaroo Church. Potential recipient.
Okay. Well, thank you. We'll move on to the minutes. Minutes for the council meeting held on the 22nd of February. I'd like to move confirmation of minutes. Councillor Turner, Councillor Reid, thank you. Any discussion? No discussion. All those in favour, those against, declare the motion carried. Minutes of the extraordinary meeting held on the 28th of February. I'd like to move. Councillor Butler and Councillor Reid. Put the motion, all those in favour? Those against, declare the motion carried. Thank you. You're a minute nil, reports to council, Bowling Master Plan, 6.1. Any questions, any comments?
Mr. Mayor,
Thank you, Councillor Jones.
motion, and if I could call on the director, Julie Costa, to make a comment, because I understand there's been a fair amount of work put into this and community consultation, and very exciting step for these village communities.
Thank you, Councillor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the question, Councillor Jones. These projects have been undertaken in a similar fashion to the last three projects, which was Weed, Jasper, Bookham and Yass. So there's been two lots of community consultation with Bounty and Binalong. One was pre the preparation of the plan, so getting an understanding for the two villages. And then once the drafting of the plans was completed, the drafts have been presented back to those communities again, with the option for them to provide some feedback and some understanding around how those recommendations have come about. And I really would just like to thank both the Binalong and Bounding communities for their cooperation and participation. We really appreciate them hosting us to do this work, and just acknowledge the work of my strategic planning team in facilitating the project.
Thank you, Director. I'd like to move the recommendation.
No, I thought you were moving. I was going to second it.
I just wanted to, if I could, take this opportunity to highlight one of the quiet achievers in our executive team. Director of Planning and Environment, Ms. Julie Costa, has developed a relationship with the village associations that I have never seen on this level before in our executive in terms of her continued engagement with community association meetings, and has really opened up communication channels like never before. I think we will give her an honorary councillorship in this, because I think she's even. We had a former councillor here, Jeff Frost, who I think diligently attended all of the community association meetings, and Julie might be about to exceed you in number of. So I just wanted to highlight Julie's work. It's certainly made us confident in the decisions that we've been making, or certainly it's made myself confident in the decisions that I've been making about the village master plan, because I can rely on the information that it's been well tested in the community. So a big vote of thanks.
Thank you, councillor Jones. You moved that recommendation, did you? Councillor Jones and councillor Reid. Any further discussion? I'll put the motion in. All those in favour? Those against? Declare the motion carried. We do have a late report. We have to, I need someone to move to the councillor Jones and councillor Botham. Thank you. Any discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Declare the motion carried. Right, moving right along. 6.2, development application, DA 230073, 6 Discovery Drive.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, happy to move the recommendation as stands.
You, councillor Jones, we have a seconder.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, have I got a second?
Yes.
Thank you. Look, I think this application process has had ample opportunities to provide the appropriate information to show how that it meets all the rules and regulations. And in recent times, we have refused DAs where applicants have been given multiple opportunities to get their documentation right. This has been a problematic DA in terms of its acceptance within the community there and meeting the rules and regulations. So I think it's just time to move this on.
Any further discussion? Speakers for or against? No, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Declare the motion. 6.3, Parcel Road closure, Nottingham Road, Bridge Reserve. Register, the recommendation.
Mr. Mayor, if you're happy for me to move it with the following addition of 0.6, which would be that the heritage assessment report submitted with the planning proposal for the heritage listing of the swinging shacks in the Yass Valley LEP 2013 be shared with Crown Lands once received.
Do we have a second? Councillor Botham, thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I can briefly talk to this issue. We've tried our very best to engage with Crown Lands. At our first invitation, they declined to attend when we tried to get all parties together. Finally, they did accept our invitation. What I learned out of that is that Crown Lands have a very strong policy of no private occupation in public land. And I didn't see any indication that they were willing to budge on that issue. However, I think it's very important that we point out to them that this heritage proposal is in play, and that will be the case whether it's still in council ownership or whether it's in Crown Lands ownership. They have an obligation and a duty of care to look at the results of that and take it into account. I think it's also important that they take into account the fact that council has received a lot of support for keeping the shacks, including from the Wee Jasper Association. I was impressed by the amount of public support that this the Swinging Bridge Heritage Reserve Group have garnered for it. I think it is a unique location, and I'm looking forward to seeing the results of the heritage planning process.
Any further discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, declare the motion carried. 6.4, water rebate, Yass Water Supply Network. There's a recommendation.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, councillor Turner and councillor Reid. Any discussion? Councillor Cameron.
Yeah, I'd like to speak against the recommendation as it stands at the moment. With the recommendation, there's a lot of detail there, and it's very logical, and it's a very factual assessment of what's happened in the past, and obviously this is going to impact on our decision in regard to the recent problem that we had in regard to boiling the water and the health problem. To my mind, council's response to this emergency lacked any sense of empathy to what the community was going through. There was no public meeting called to discuss the issue in any sort of detail. No expression of how we can help. I think which would have been beneficial if it had been attached to the more than adequate health warnings that were sent out to the public, and I think that was well done, the health warnings. Recently, I had a problem with the Commonwealth Bank over an ATM matter. The problem was that we weren't told about the issue for 2 weeks, and then they withdrew money from our account, my wife and my own account, without any notice, without sufficient notice. After complaining to the bank and having discussions with them and the relevant regulators, a sum of money was suggested as not as compensation, but as recognition of distress, anxiety, and inconvenience caused by the bank's actions. Okay, so not compensation, but recognition of the problems that were caused by this oversight. In future, I believe we must ensure that we adequately recognise the difficulties some may face, not everyone, but some may face in such situations, and we should act like any other service provider. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Cameron. Any further discussion?
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Jones.
Councillor Cameron's not wrong. We are a service provider, and we're in a very unique situation that we are the sole provider of this, and we are bound by all of the rules and regulations under the Fair Trading Act in terms of providing a service and a product that's fit for purpose. The trouble that we find ourselves in is that we're all in this boat together. We all pay our water rates, and the amount of money that this amounts to, a cup of coffee at a local cafe would cost you more than what we're offering. So rather than insult our community, I think we have to band together in solidarity, say we're going to have to bear this in this instance and probably a lot more, because the bar has been lifted in terms of the standard for the boil water alerts. So now that goalpost has shifted, we can expect more boil water alerts until we have the ultimate solution of an updated water treatment plan. So I want to acknowledge, first of all, the work put in to create this report. And I think it would not be suitable to offer this minimal refund. And I acknowledge that sometimes a town meeting can be a very effective thing. Firstly, for communication, for those that aren't on the usual communication vectors, but also as a moment for people to express their frustration along with their fears. And I know that for mums who've been using that boiled water during a time when, you know, we didn't know how long this was going to go on for, budgets are tight, it was of concern for them because they didn't understand what the problem was. And rather than, boil the water and risk it, they were buying bottled water even though our health warning said it would be fine to drink the boiled water, fears are real in the community at a time such as this. And I think it's important that we get on with the job. We impress upon the state and the federal government that we need help. We need this financial assistance through these grants that we're applying for with the National Water Grid to successfully solve this problem and provide something that we can all be proud of in terms of water supply.
Thank you, councillor Jones. Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm proud of you today. This is a difficult one for me because I grew up as a child in a country where they only had water for 2 hours a day. It was physically turned off. And we filled baths with water that was available there to saucepans in order to flush the lavatories, everything else, which created a great problem. The water was also unpotable, so it was also boiled. So I'm used to the fact that every now and then you're inconvenienced by having water that you have to boil. This was created not by anything that council did. It was created by a change in the ground rules and a whole bunch of climatic conditions that all occurred together. And so basting council staff, as the people did on the social media, they did deserve nothing but praise. They worked tirelessly in order to keep this community safe. They did a great job in keeping this community safe. And as far as I'm concerned, any suggestion that we might repay $3 per household in acknowledgement of the fact that they went through a little bit of inconvenience for a short period of time, along with, I think, 17 other councils who were also affected by boil water alerts as a result of New South Wales government changing the rules. Congratulations to the staff. Thank you for doing a great job in keeping us safe. I commend the motion.
Thank you, councillor Turner. Councillor Turner's closed the debate. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Declare the motion carried. 6.5, the investment report. Is a recommendation. Councillor Reid.
I'll move that.
Councillor Python. Thank you. Any discussion? Any questions? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Declare the motion carried. Rural fire service assets. Item 6.5. There is a recommendation. Someone like to move the recommendation? Councillor Abbey. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Reid. Any discussion? 6. Councillor Cameron. Oh, sorry, Councillor Jones.
No, just looking through the possible letter that might be heading off to people, can we just check who's in charge of the different political parties in regard to local government? In regard to the Greens, the current person in charge of local government is Dr. Amanda Conn, and she's the former Deputy Mayor of Albury. And the person who's mentioned there left Parliament at the last election. Can we just make sure that we're sending it to the right people? I think that's in the...
Through Mr. Mayor. That was the old report that we included as an attachment for reference.
Sorry.
This report is just reconfirming council support on this stand.
Sorry.
Good to know you're reading the report, so. Okay, no further discussion. Councillor Jones.
Through Mr. Mayor, a question for the CEO. Do you have the keys to the shed?
Aren't you?
I haven't keys to any sheds, but I'd love to drive one of those fire.
And the next question is, do you know what's in the shed?
No.
So it's not our shed, it's not our asset, so why on earth is it on our ledger?
Well, through Mr. Mayor, they are our sheds, they are on our books, mainly because they are on council land, and we've acknowledged that appropriately within our financial statements. It's the red fleet. It's the movable items effectively within the shed that is the problem. The government are basically saying, and even the auditor's office is saying, that when they're not in use by RFS, then council can use those vehicles. That's the most bizarre thing I've ever heard. Yeah, that's what I was thinking that maybe they could be used for water carting on our roads, but effectively we're not controlling those assets. We don't have the ability to buy and sell those assets. We can't deploy them where we want to, but the rural fire service can deploy them wherever they like to, wherever they're directed to. So it's just an absurd piece of legislation. Despite what the audit office says and the accounting standards, the benefit to the community is not in the red fleet. It's what the red fleet does, benefits us, but we don't manage the asset. And the accounting guidelines basically say if you control an asset, you've got to record it. If you don't control the asset, you don't record it. It's simple. Now we're in the same boat as 38 other councils now. I think some of them have capitulated based on the direction, but there's 38 councils who are still towing the line at this stage, and we'll continue to fight against this. It's just completely absurd.
Happy? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Declare the motion carried. 6.2, 2024 summer school holiday overview. Your recommendation? Mover, Councillor Cameron. Seconded, Councillor Jones. Any questions? Any discussion?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just had a question for the Director of Corporate and Community. I was fascinated to read in the report that you drew attention to homeschool children. So I was just curious as to the ages of the homeschool children. Do they tend to be primary or secondary? And also how many we have in the Yass Valley?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can't tell you how many we have in the Yass Valley, but the youth that participated were high school age children.
And how many of them?
Oh, I think we had about 5 or 6 participate.
Further questions?
Just firstly, a vote of thanks. It's very, very exciting to see projects such as this in the Yass Valley. When I first got onto council, the only projects were held by the Youth Council, and it was a very labour-intensive committee. So the fact that council now has a very dedicated director to community events, I just wanted to give her the opportunity to talk about the program.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess, as I've mentioned all along, is that I'm very dedicated to providing community events for youth and for seniors. We have proved over the last 12 to 18 months that by doing this, it has started to turn around some of the comments on our Facebook. Families are starting to support council now where before they never ever did that. And just to see some of the youth and the seniors, their reactions to the activities that are provided, that most of them we can only provide through grant funding. It's a pleasure to do that. And, we couldn't do it without staff participation, so it's a team effort, and volunteers. We do have a couple of volunteers that help us as well.
I'd just like to point out that in part of the organic moment of this program, you also had engagement from Valmar. Can I ask the question of how we formally potentially incorporate more
Ability suitable.
Yeah, all abilities, thank you, into our program.
Through this, we constantly try and involve different ability programs, and to this date we haven't had much of a response. It just happened that they saw the activity and we welcome them on board to get involved, but we'll continue to do that.
Thank you.
Okay. Further comments? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, declare the motion carried.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move 6.8, 6.9, 6.10, be moved to confidential.
Through Mr. Mayor, you might want to do the late, the first part of the late report as well.
Oh, I beg your pardon, yes, and the latest.
Sorry, could you just repeat? Sorry, I didn't quite hear.
6.7, 6.8, sorry, 6.8, 6.9, 6.10, and the late report. Be moved to confidential.
You have a second? Councillor Butler. Moved Councillor Tanner, seconded Councillor Butler. Any discussion? Councillor Kemp.
Sorry, I thought these were going to be handled separately. No problem with 6.8. 6.9, what's the reasoning behind why it's confidential varies from 6.9 to 10.3. You've got two different reasons of why it's confidential. The Banning Hall Association rate exemption request. On one hand, you've got saying it's business person, confidential matter. Then in 10.3, there's a different reason given. Can I ask which reason are we going with? Please, just to indicate that I do look at the reports.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron.
Because it's the personal hardship of the resident or ratepayer. So we're not going with 10.3?
It's a public business related. I know, it would be the hardship. Or just 6.9 is incorrect.
Which one's incorrect? Sorry.
6.9?
Is incorrect.
Mr. Mayor, my apologies, the confidential reason should be the section 10A2B, which is closing it for business relating to personal hardship of resident or ratepayer.
Okay.
Right. So not in 6.9. So we've scrubbed that out.
That's correct. It should be the 10A2B, not 10A2DI.
Okay. Thank you. Just a couple of quick comments. Why I might argue against the confidentiality. With it's now 10.3, which is the original 6.9, the reason giving. The personal hardship thing was done in 2023 and not 2024. My understanding of what has been sent in by the Banning Hall rates exemption request is really for a fairer arrangement, and they haven't mentioned the terms of personal hardship. So I don't think that's an adequate reason. That's the first point. The second point, the 6.10, the Craig O'Mill business case. Just want to mention that April 22, as it's mentioned there, the draft business case was presented and was not in confidential. And that was in a situation, I think, when the business case was not as developed, perhaps, but now we've got the whole thing put in confidential when I don't think it necessarily should be. Thank you.
Through Mr. Mayor, just on that last one, the April report was interesting because the business case, part of the business case was made public and the two other supporting documents were dealt with as confidential documents.
Thank you.
So that was slightly different, but I do acknowledge you're right that it was certainly a work in progress.
Thank you.
Okay, prepared to vote? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Councillor Cameron against? Declare the motion carried. Item 7, notice of motion. Yes, FM.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really move with some trepidation the motion as it is written in the full and certain knowledge that it's about to be torn to pieces in an alternate version. However,
It may ask for one of a second. That's okay. Thank you.
the point needs to be made that whilst there is a in the report, it states that the council has no legal obligation in doing what we intend to do with Yass FM. We have a moral obligation which has been in place for some 25 years. We provided them, council provided them with accommodation in the waterworks, provided for a considerable length of time, and as a result of redevelopment, that situation was no longer tenable, and we needed to find other accommodation. The accommodation that was found now appears to be untenable because it's another building that council is going to find another use for, in similar fashion to the waterworks. The site offered in North Yass at the old service centre complex, back of the men's shed, for obvious reasons, has now been deemed to be untenable as a result of pollution and things in the ground. So yet again, for the third time, we've been in a situation where Yass FM is in a position where it has to move. It has access to a community, to a government grant, which allows it to build a building, or what would have allowed it to build a building on council land that would ultimately become council property. The current building is absolutely fit for purpose. It is ideal. However, the internal economies of the building do not suit the long-term plans of Yass FM, and in committing the money to the cottage, they were looking for a long-term lease to ensure that that building could be used and would be used for a long time as Yass FM studios. It fits into the Victoria Park plan, of course, and that plan now says that's a building that's scheduled for demolition. Although we obviously don't have a site plan which is set in concrete, there is no firm plan. We're looking at expressions of interest that may or may not happen in the next 2, 5, 20, 50 years. Who knows? It is a distinct possibility that there's someone out there who's going to say, not on your Nelly. That's not going to be something that I'm remotely interested in. And I don't want to build a pool, and therefore the building will remain in situ. And that would be a tragedy if we lose Yass FM funding as a result of our inability to look after them in the short term. I will leave the rest of it for later.
Thank you. Councillor Young.
I'd like to propose an amendment.
Oh, serious? Oh, terrible.
I play an open poker hand, so you can see what I'm proposing. Look, I'd like to move the alternate, that the Yass FM amendment, that Yass FM be permitted to continue leasing the pool house on a 12 monthly basis with 6 monthly extensions until such time any construction for an indoor pool and upgrade of the Yass Memorial Pool has been scheduled. And 2, Yass FM be supported, subject to obtaining appropriate approvals, to make improvements to the current pool house building with the grant funding they have received that will allow access to the building from the eastern side and improvements to the building to make it more suitable as a radio station complex whilst not curtailing any future development plan for the pool. And 3, discussions be held with Yass FM over alternate sites prior to the commencement of the expression of interest process for the pool construction.
We have a second to the amendment. Councillor Butler, thank you.
Would you like me to speak to the amendment?
Let's just test the water and see how the original motion feels.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would be happy with that, provided there's an inclusion somewhere there that the site that we're looking for is within Victoria Park.
Through Mr. Mayor, why don't we say alternate sites, including the possibility of the Victoria Park? That way we know we're looking there, but we won't limit ourselves to there in case there's something out of the box.
You happy with that, councillor? Councillor Cameron, thank you. Okay.
Through you, Mr Mayor, council has a long history of supporting Yass FM, and I think we should continue to do so. I think some of the examples of where Yass FM has been a peak standout would be their role during COVID, when we lost the Yass Tribune and there was a void in media, and the Yass FM volunteers were an incredible help to the community in terms of stepping up to the plate. They are active in the community. If there's an event like the Murrumbidgee Field Days, they're there live broadcasting. They've done everything possible to be inclusive, and it's wonderful to see grassroots programs that give an opportunity for all kinds of people from our community, from youth to seniors, to participate. And given the community events that are held in Victoria Park, it makes a lot of sense to have such a function still there. My concern is that we can't give them a guaranteed 10-year lease at that pool house site, because we've got too many variables that we haven't sorted out. We can't give a definitive, yes, you can start renovating that like it's your home for the next 10 years, because we don't know. We've got to get a consultant in to do the EOI, and it may be that it does need to be flattened or that it can be accommodated. And that's information that is probably not going to be available in the next 6 to 12 months. So I think we have to be realistic and put other options, such as what we've done on the table, which was the point 3, that we look at alternate sites prior to the commencement of the EOI process for the pool construction. Let's quickly open up the situation so we can look at all of the options for Yass FM, so they can know with certainty going forward what is their best option. I really like the idea of a transportable building that allows them to know with certainty that that's a structure that can be DA approved easily. But the site is unique. It is on community, Crown land. So I think it's important that we look at all possible locations in partnership with Yass FM, so that we can give them a surety that we've checked all the locations for the best possible option for them. And I don't want to see this organisation homeless. And it's such a shame that the Men's Shed site didn't come through, and I acknowledge that council did absolutely everything to investigate and provide further funding to do that investigation. Thank you so much. But now it's time to look at where the permanent home can be.
Any further speakers? Councillor Dodd.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, can I just ask the Director of Planning, Julie, to just answer a couple of questions about, so Victoria Park is under the master plan and how that would work, because that's already sort of gone through as the master plan. How does it come to a fact that you can change master plans? What's the process involved? What's the timelines? What's the costs? If you can roughly answer some of that, because it sounds really easy to just say, oh, we'll just add something to that, but because it's under a master plan, I'm not sure of the process or costs involved.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you for the question. I think that we could probably do the amendment to the master plan with some relative ease. I don't know if we'd go back and do consultation. I'd have to think through how that would work, but it is something that could be done, and we might need a little bit of a budget just to do the work that needs to get the consultant to come back and just tidy a few things up. That can be achieved. I think really, councillors, what I would be thinking about is the plan of management and what it provides for in terms of development of Victoria Park. Whether or not, I know there is provision in there for lease of that building whilst it is still standing for community use. So I think we would need to revisit that. The only thing I would caution council around is the use of that building, and if works are done and a development consent and construction certificate is needed for that work, potentially then that triggers an upgrade of the entire building under the building code. So then that becomes a little bit more complex. So, you know, like I haven't seen inside the building, but I could probably get a bit of an idea from the outside is that, you know, potentially having to upgrade that building to comply could be an issue. So I think council just needs to be mindful of that. Does that answer your question?
Definitely, thank you, yeah.
Councillor Turner.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, just in support of obviously of finding a home for this valuable organisation. The importance of Yass FM really came to the fore recently with the water crisis in the Yass Valley. And it has provided 2/3 of the community of Yass with ongoing daily reports and reminders that the water needed to be boiled, clean your teeth, don't drink it. It's a really valuable piece of equipment. We need to keep it supported, and we need to ensure that the 2/3 of the community who listen to Yass FM, albeit occasionally, have up-to-date information in crises like the water and bushfires and others that will happen in the fullness of time. And we need to have it somewhere where it can broadcast that everybody can hear.
Absolutely. Thank you, councillor Turner. Okay, I'll put the amendment. All those in favour? Those against? The amendment now becomes the motion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Declare the motion carried. Thank you, councillors. We go on to questions with notice, nil. Number 9, minutes and recommendations of council committees. Municipal Fire and Rescue, Local Emergency Management. There's a report, a recommendation.
You just got to, you missed one. Missed it before. 9.1 needs to go into closed session.
So good, Mr. Mayor.
We have a seconder. Councillor Potham, move Councillor Jones, seconded Councillor Potham. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, declare the motion carried. Okay. 9.2,
Not Mr. Switch it off. You want me to switch it off?
minutes of rescue and emergency management.
It's free.
Your report and recommendation, someone like to move the recommendation? Councillor Reid, do we have a seconder? Motion, Councillor Potham. Thank you, Councillor Reid. Any questions? Comments? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, declare the motion carried. It's of the 9.2.
9.3.
9.3, right. Minutes of the Aboriginal Consultative. Councillor Turner, we have a seconder. Councillor Reid. Any questions? Any comments? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, declare the motion carried. Minutes of the Canberra Region Joint Organisation. Like to move, Councillor Reid, thank you, and Councillor Potham. Any questions? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, those against, declare the motion. Okay. Move that we move into combination, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Turner. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Butler. Put the motion. All those in favour? Declare the motion carried. Okay.